But it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out. What a great job that you have. So I'm looking forward to
Thank
delving
you.
into that. So,
Thanks.
um,
Yeah.
so to begin our conversation, I want to ask about one of the more momentous things that we've all lived through in our lifetime. 4 years ago, this pandemic began. We didn't know what it was going to do. Now that we're kind of in this post-pandemic era, how did you survive it and how did it change you?
The pandemic really, I think, made me who I wanted to be, or at least gave me the steps towards becoming the person that I am today. I, at the time, was working in public accounting for a major public accounting firm, was working in international tax. I thought that that role would enable me to travel more. I never got to travel. It was such a letdown, and I really felt stuck. And then COVID hit, and I realized that I could do my job from wherever. I could
Yeah.
serve my clients no matter where I was. And so I started thinking there has to be a way for me to be able to travel more frequently. But the deterrent for myself and for many young professionals is the cost, particularly the cost of accommodation. So, what I did is I booked a trip, which I always do when I need to make a major decision in my life, and I decided to take some girlfriends to Saboga, Panama, which
Mhm.
is a little island off the coast of Panama. While we were sitting there on the beach, just reflecting about community and friendships and freedom and travel, this idea came to me of starting a service that catered to the modern day remote worker, the remote worker who wants to combine their career with their love of exploration. And through that, Nomad Travel Groups was born. I'm very excited about it. We launched on social media just last week.
Excellent. So let's get to the heart and soul of exactly what you do with your company. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
So, we are a home exchange service. What that means is we pair people into groups of three. We give them a shared calendar, we give them a group messaging feature, which enables them to build relationships and trust. And then they're able to swap homes with each other at an affordable cost.
Wow. So it's kind of the Airbnb idea, but just more personalized.
Exactly. And our customers aren't earning money on their listings. They
Gotcha.
get a cleaning fee payout, but that's it. So it's not classified as a short-term rental. It's in a niche market called home exchange.
The great thing about what you're doing, and I think about this with a lot of things in our modern era, none of this existed, say 10, 15, 20 years ago. It's so good because I used to hear people say if people in a neighborhood would come together and exchange good services for services, it would make the world a much better place. Because even in your regular neighborhood, you got an IT guy, you got an accountant, you got someone that's in travel, you got someone
Right.
that can get tickets to sporting events. If everybody could kind of come together, it's almost as though it's this communal goodwill environment, so to speak, of like really getting to know each other because that only builds community and makes us trust each other and not think the world is such a bad place that the news media would make us believe.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is home exchange has actually been around for a really long time. I believe the earliest company dealing with home exchange was founded in the early 1900s. That was in Europe, though. So in
Yeah.
Europe, the concept of home exchange has been around for a while, which makes sense because most European countries have more communalistic ideals.
Yeah.
The US is more of an individualistic country. And so the concept of home exchange was reintroduced through home exchange, which is both in the US as well as in Europe, but also through a somewhat new company called Kindred that was founded in 2021. They all, though, operate on a members only basis, and they have pretty subjective membership application and approval processes. Nomad caters to everyone. We do not operate on a members only basis.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
my my dream was actually to be a singer.
Okay.
Um, Growing up overseas, I grew up in Madagascar and Bangladesh. We only got certain channels. I binge watched Friends. My dad got The Simpsons on a trip to Vietnam. He got like the full DVD set, so I would watch that over and over. And then when I came to the US, I was obsessed with Disney Channel. It was the only time that I could watch it when we'd vacation here. And I would watch the child actors and the singers, and I had this dream of being on TV and really showing off my talents. But I'm pursuing that in a different way now through Nomad travel groups.
Okay, so talk to me a little bit about how you got to where you're at today. You're obviously an entrepreneur. You're obviously good with numbers and kind of right left brain kind of things. How did all of these things get planted and grow into who you are as a professional entrepreneur today?
Really, my experience living overseas is the reason that I'm so passionate about travel. I was given the opportunity to travel frequently when I was very young. And we traveled to emerging countries. It wasn't just established countries. And I really fell in love again with this communalistic ideal that so many of these countries led by. When I came to the States, it was almost this shock to the system of, oh, everybody's in their own corners and nobody trusts each other. And it's hard to build friendships. And that was really, really difficult for me, but I knew at some point I wanted to combine my skill set in accounting with a career that involved travel or international anything. And that's why I moved into international tax. I've always been a really creative person, a pretty artistic person, and tax doesn't really fit the bill when
Right.
it comes to that. So it was just this constant pursuit of how do I fulfill this passion, this childhood dream? And at some point, I knew it was going to come to me. And thank God for Saboga on that beach. That's when Nomad did.
You know, it's interesting how many things come from Europe over here. Like,
Yeah,
all of the TV shows that are over here that do good are usually born in Britain. And just a lot of those ideas from Europe that have been a part of their world because yeah, the Europeans are all stacked up and they're okay with grandparents living with them and parents living with them. There's just this more meatier idea of family that exists. But probably in your case too, I think it's very important for people to get out and travel and see other cultures because
yeah.
that's native to you. You've seen the world in a completely different way coming into this country, which has probably lent to you seeing life in a totally different set of glasses.
Absolutely, absolutely. I really truly believe that you find yourself, you become a better person when you travel. And it's
Yeah.
because you're taking yourself out of your comfort zone. You're understanding how other people live their lives. You're not scared to introduce yourself to new people, to figure out new ways of life, to figure out how to get from point A to point B, maybe without speaking the language. And through that struggle, you realize the kindness of people. And that really only comes from being uncomfortable through traveling.
I remember I was in the back of a water taxi on September 11th, 2001,
Oh, wow.
and I had gone to Paris. I flew from Kansas City. I went through New York, JFK, and went to Paris. And that was the 4th of September. And of course, no one knew what was going to happen. And I was in my 20s and I just didn't contact home. I just was traveling. So when that happened, I had to figure out a way home because my from Paris to Kansas City didn't exist anymore. So
Oh,
what
no.
you're saying is I had to find my way to London. I flew out of Gatwick, but that whole time, the Brits were wonderful. I was in Italy
Mhm.
for a little while. I was in a place called Cinque Terre, which is kind of the poor man's Riviera, and everybody was really embracing. And I think about this of all of the places that I could have been at that time, with everything being so confusing and weird in this country. Being over there was probably one of the more ideal situations to be in.
I bet, and I'm curious to hear your take on what it felt like to be supported by a completely different country group of people when America was going through this tragedy.
It felt welcoming. It felt like it was like a warm embrace. Like they were trying to figure out why we didn't like bin Laden and why he could have been behind it. And then
Mhm.
while I explained the history of our politics and how that happened, because it happened, we used Saudi Arabia as kind of a launching pad for the war, and it was sacred ground. Kind of got into all of that, and they were explaining the IRA issues that they went through and how
Oh,
all of
wow.
that, so there was a measuring stick in both of our cultures that were very different, but at the end of the day, they were totally cool and just ready to do anything that they needed to make us comfortable. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think you hit on one of the most important aspects of travel. It's really broaching those conversations with people who don't understand you or where you come from and explaining it in a way where they don't have to change their mind, but at least you're building a bridge of understanding. And I feel that's really why this community oriented approach to nomad travel groups was born. Our one liner, really what we believe in, is when you step into somebody else's home, you understand them a little bit better. You
Yeah.
may be completely different people, but you're building this level of trust and respect.
Yeah, absolutely. So who's been a hero, a motivator for you in your life and your career choices?
My mom has always been my hero. She grew up in a small town in Senegal called Tambacounda, and she's just an amazing woman. She speaks six different languages fluently. When she was pregnant with my sister, she moved to the U.S. and learned how to speak English. She's dealt with a lot of struggles in her life and has always overcome them. And she's really my source of strength. Whenever I'm going through something, I give her a call and she gives me the motivation to keep pushing. And what I really, really admire and respect about her is that she really instilled this the importance of understanding other people and the importance of knowing yourself by being the best person that you can be, by putting your authentic self out there. If you do that, you should have no regrets.
Yeah. So if you could meet anybody on the planet right now that you find fascinating, one person, and spend some time with them, who would that be?
If I could meet anybody on the planet, I have to say Barack Obama. I
Yeah.
am so inspired by him and also just admire him so much. But both him and Michelle,
Yeah.
I I think, you know, in the wake of our upcoming presidential election, it would be really nice to get his perspective on how things are
Yeah.
going right
Yeah.
now in this country.
I just listened to Michelle Obama's book, and I had no idea how many things were set in motion by Trump with
Hmm.
them still being in office. Just that I just had no I had no one would have ever known that our political system would get as clowny as it's gotten. Like no
Yeah.
one could have said it's going to descend into a level that's surreal. It's weird. It's
Yeah.
really weird.
It's like
Um,
a reality TV show. I have to pinch myself and
I know. It's like, is this happening? It used to be so sedate and pedestrian, and now
I
it's
know.
so dire and full of weird stuff. It's weird. So,
Seriously.
so your business is to get people to see different parts of the world, and I'm curious in your life, what's one of the most unexpectedly magical places that you've traveled to that you didn't expect it to be that way?
When I was maybe in the third grade, one of my best friends, she was half or is half Indonesian, half Australian. And her family had a house in Ubud, which is in Indonesia. And we went there for, I think it was just a week. And it was not next to the beach, it was tucked away into the village, and just enjoyed really immersing ourselves in the culture and learning more about her childhood and her mother's childhood and getting to know the community. The food was amazing. I had my first pig roast. I think that was one of the first most magical experiences that I got while traveling. And it also made me realize that I wanted to do this more. I wanted to go into areas that I was uncomfortable with, that I didn't know anything about, and really learn more about the community there.
That's the interesting thing about travel. My dad, his ancestors were from Italy, so the first time I ever went to Italy, I actually went to visit a friend that was a pen pal of mine in high school.
Oh,
And
wow.
I had to learn the language and learn lira, which is like, 2,000 lira is $1 and just all the conversions and everything. And I remember
Yeah.
how like nervous I was going into it. It was a different kind of nervousness, not like it wasn't bad, it wasn't dire, but it was like, "What am I getting into?" And it was really cool, though, because it definitely opens up your brain to a whole other side that you just didn't see that existed, and you have to survive and thrive. You literally have the choice that that's what you're gonna do because you want to enjoy it.
Yeah, you have to figure it out because there's There will be people that will help you, but at the end of the day, you need to just buckle down, figure out where you're going, how to convert money, where am I going to stay,
Yep.
how do I order food, all these basic things that we take for granted when we stay in our comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is the motivation for you every day to be an entrepreneur and to also grow yourself? What gets you out of bed and makes you be who you are?
I have always listened to my gut. I'm a very spiritual person, particularly being half Senegalese. Whenever I feel like there's something wrong, I am not living up to my capacity. Could be doing more. There's something out there for me. I've always believed that I've been put on this earth to do something, to affect people, to effectuate change. And particularly when I hit that sort of I guess, stagnant growth period following COVID. Every day I woke up with my heart was just sinking. I felt like something was so, so wrong, and I had to do something about it. And since I founded Nomad, I have had motivation, belief in myself, love for what I'm doing. The world is just a brighter place. And because of that, I know I'm on the right track. So if I wake up with that feeling, that means that I'm doing what I was supposed to do. And that's my motivation to keep going.
So what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
The best advice I've ever gotten. Um, I attended a women's entrepreneur summit when I was just in the very early stages of Nomad. And there was a woman who was speaking about the difficulties of being a woman and getting respect and having to pitch for funding, all the things that go into building a successful company. And one of the things that she said was, if you don't lead with authenticity, your customers are not going to believe in your product or service. Be your most authentic self, and your business will do well.
Yeah, that's totally true. So the one thing that I think is also interesting is that they always tell entrepreneurs, and I've heard this before, that when you go into building a business model, you're solving a problem. And
Right.
that's very evident with what you're doing. I mean, it's something that's resolving an issue, but it's also opening up people's worlds.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, I really am so happy that I went into accounting initially and that I have a business background
Yeah.
because I was able to take those practical skills, really research the market, get to know what home exchange was, who are my competitors. I have so many documents that I have just compiled with all of my research, all of my analysis. And I had to get really comfortable with the fact that Nomad was filling a hole in the market and that we were differentiating ourselves just enough to really make waves. But for me to invest all of my time, my capital, and friend and family money into this idea. When you're an entrepreneur, you have to take risks. But the good thing about my accounting background is I only take a risk when it's absolutely necessary and I
Uh-huh.
know that it is the right risk.
Yeah, absolutely. So of all of the things that you've done so far in your life and evolved into, what are you the proudest of?
I am the proudest of, funny enough, this apartment that I am currently sitting in. When I was younger, I dealt with some challenges, and I would have these moments of reflection where I would just sit there and think about what I wanted. And this was at a really young age, like the fifth or sixth grade. I would sit there and think about what I wanted. What was I working hard for? Why was I playing tennis so much? Why was I studying to get straight A's? And it had this fantasy of being in my perfect apartment, small apartment with an amazing view. And I'm so thankful because I see the entire Rocky Mountains. It is gorgeous, and I'm so proud of it. And I think it's important to really honor those achievements, particularly those achievements that you've dreamt of since you were a kid.
So if you were to have a dream tonight, you ran into, say, the 16-year-old version of you, you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life so far. What advice would you give that young version of you?
I would say keep grinding, keep doing what you need to do, stay disciplined, stay focused. You are going to do something with your life. Just believe in yourself.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I know that I'm a very driven, disciplined, creative, organized, almost to the point of anal person. But at the root of who I am, I really try to spread love as much as I can. I want people to feel welcomed. I want people to feel valued. I want people to feel heard. And I try to do that through my personal friendships. And now I'm trying to do that through Nomad travel groups.
So, Marie, if anyone wants to get involved with Nomad, they want to reach out, they want to learn more about what's going on, where's the best place for them to go?
So our pre-registration is live at wetravelnomad.com. Give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok at We Travel Nomad, and we're also on LinkedIn at Nomad Travel Groups. If you have any questions, please reach out to customer service at wetravelnomad.com.
Excellent, Marie. This has been wonderful. What a great idea. I hope it
Thank you
flourishes.
so much.
Yeah, thank you. And how do you spell your last name or say it correctly?
DeCosse.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. You never want to assume. That gets you in trouble. All right. Marie,
Thank you.
thank you. Travel well.
Thanks, you too.
Take care. See ya.
Bye.